Hi everyone, this PowerPoint is going to give you some more information about how to write the literature review essay. The information that's in here is not any different from the information that is on our Panther Learn page in the document that gives you guidelines about writing this essay, but it's just another way of explaining it and might explain some of the problems that might come up when you're trying to write the paper and give you some solutions for it. So, getting started, the first thing that you want to do is think about what the objective of the paper is. Our goal is not to make an original argument about Emma in this paper. You will have a chance to do that if you choose to write your final literary analysis paper about Emma. But right now, we just want to see what the current scholarly conversation is about a particular topic in Emma. So a literature review is a section of a paper or an article that you might write in the future. Usually it's in a longer paper or a longer article, and it helps the author set the stage for what's been said so far so that it's easier then for that writer to then establish what's new that they're going to say in that piece of writing, in that article or in that chapter or whatever. So you'll see it in most scholarly literature that you read. And it's a good way of making sure that you know what the conversation is so far so that you can add to it when you're writing your argument. Now, this assignment is only the literature review section of that. So if it were a longer assignment, you would do the literature review, follow that up with your thesis, and then make your original article or original argument. Our point for now is only to do the review part, which is simply a summary of what the scholarship is so far. So you want to think about a question that you want to explore. Many of you in your discussion boards have talked about the idea of friendship in Emma. So I'm going to use that as my example here, but it really could be any question. Does Emma reform? Does Mr. Knightley have too strong of an influence on her? What is the nature of community in Highbury? How strong or dominant is gossip as a discourse? I mean, it could be anything. What is the importance of the setting? So anything that's interesting to you, but I'm going to use friendship as my example. And then your objective is simply to report the answers that you find. So the first thing you're going to need to do after you have your question is find sources. For this paper, you need to use at least 4 sources. And by sources, I mean articles, books, book chapters, anything like that. But it has to be something that's peer-reviewed. So not somebody's blog post, not, class notes that somebody might have posted from a graduate class in another school or something like that. Something that has been published and is peer-reviewed. One of your sources can be the article that you researched in week 1 and wrote a response about. Another one may be any one of the essays in our Emma book, either the ones that we read, the Gender Studies, Marxist Studies, or New Historicist one, or any of the others that we did not read. However, remember that the introductions by Duckworth that precede each argumentative essay are not essays about Emma. They are summary essays that are meant to teach you about the theories, and even though they have a couple of pages that summarize what argument is coming up about Emma, they themselves are not the argument, so do not cite those introductory essays. If you want to cite the ideas that are in them, find those similar ideas in the actual article, the ones we read about Gender Studies by Claudia Johnson, the one by Tobin that's Marxist Studies, or the one by Finch and Bowen by New Historicism, or any of the others, as I said, that are there. So that leaves 2 sources. One of those sources, it would be okay to use an article that a classmate posted about in week 2. So that's the whole point of sharing our research. If somebody else posted something that you thought was interesting, go ahead and seek that source. Or it can be anything else that you find doing original research. So a big problem that people often have with this assignment is not being able to find enough articles about the topic. So there are a couple of ways to deal with this problem. One is to expand your terms. So in our example, we're talking about friendship. So it might help you to think about terms that could be similar to friendship. Community, relationships. You could find an article maybe about Harriet and Emma that's going to talk about friendship or something like that. And another way to deal with this is to use sources that really aren't about your topic, but that deal with your topic in some way. So maybe you read an article or you find an article that's really about something else, but it has 2 paragraphs about friendship. You could use that article still because the author is still making an argument about your topic. So then you've got your sources. How do you sit down and write the essay? First, of course, read the sources. Make sure that you know what the argument is that each writer is making in that source. When you sit down to write the paper, you don't need to have a formal introduction, thesis, and conclusion, but you do need to establish very quickly within your first couple of sentences what the main question or topic is that you're going to be discussing so that your reader knows. Your next step is just to summarize each of your sources. Now, do not summarize every detail of every source. Remember to keep it focused on your question. So if your question is, what does Austin say about friendship in Emma? Then give the information that explains what your source says that Austin says about friendship in Emma. You don't need to tell us all the other stuff. Second, when you're talking about the original order of the source, this is particularly true if you have a source that might be on another topic. I don't need to know all of the detail that might not be relevant leading up to this answer. Start out by saying, this source by this author says this about friendship in Emma, and here's how or why they make that point. So you don't need to give me all the information in every source. Make sure you keep it focused on your topic. Then, as you are writing about each of your 4 sources, frequently compare and contrast throughout your entire essay how each source answers this question and how that differs from the sources that you've already discussed, how it builds on it, how it advances it. We want to talk about conversation, so how are the sources talking to each other? Your objectives, as I said, to summarize and compare how various sources answer a question about Emma, to clearly indicate in your topic sentences what your sources say so that your audience who's reading it isn't wondering why you're giving us all this information. Make sure it's clear that you're saying what your source has to say about your topic. Explain how and why the sources argue that point, and maintain your focus on summarizing your research, not on making your own argument for this paper. And that's it. So if you have questions, let me know. I will be around and I'm happy to read versions of drafts, discuss ideas with you, help you find research topics, and support you in any way that I can.